Okay, our next speaker is Jordan James, Lecturer 2 in Community and Regional Planning. The title of his talk is The Future Me is Now, Students Who Design Their Own Final. Jordan.
So I figure since this is a lightning talk, I'm going to talk really lightning fast. So my name is Jordan James, and I'm a Native American urban planning lecturer and learning scientist. Title of my talk, as you just heard, is The Future Me is Now, Students Who Design Their Own Final. I was born and raised in Minnesota on a tiny little Indian reservation that borders Minnesota and Canada. And what am I doing here? Well, down in 1997, I came to UNM, and as I like to say, got married and never left. So why did I introduce myself in such a way when I only have 7 short minutes? Well, being Native American, particularly here in the Southwest, when we introduce ourselves, we usually go on a very long explanation of our plans. I don't have time for that. But what I think is important is that the purpose of introducing ourselves is that way, is that we're making connections to other people in the room. And I think what connects us is we're all from someplace else, yet we're here in this room at this very moment, and we probably all have a picture just like this somewhere in our photo book. So I think this unites us in our humanity. So I teach over at the School of Architecture and Planning in the Community Regional Planning program. And what the intent of my talk is when I started teaching, I really wanted to better understand the students who were coming into my program and what their funds of knowledge were. What were they bringing to my program, and why did they want to be there in urban design, urban planning, community planning? So I kind of started doing some informal survey work, and I asked my students, well, do you have any background in planning? And a wide variety said no. So I said, oh, well, why do you want to be a planner? That seems a little weird. So I asked again, maybe you got a parent, maybe you got somebody else that, made you want to be a planner. And again, pretty low, the answer is no. So again, why do you want to be a community regional planning degree then? Well, so I started in day 2, I started doing a mind mapping activity. I started asking my students, well, what do you think planning is, or what do you want planning to be? And of course, I got all the traditional answers like, oh, it's all about transportation planning, it's about economic development, it's about zoning, et cetera, et cetera. But then I started getting other ideas from students that basically were there because they wanted to save the world, or they did not see themselves represented in the cities or the communities that they lived. So they were very interested in where their food was coming from, sustainability, saving the environment, things of this nature. So if I have students coming into my program and it's not necessarily what they wanted to do as far as a traditional planning job, then how can I better connect what they do in the classroom? So I came up with this idea of, at the end of this semester, you design your own final. How do you want to prove to me that you learned this semester? And of course, you always get the classic ideas. We do not want to do any type of exam. We are not interested in cramming. We do not want to do anything multiple choice, no short answers or essays, and no long 5 to 10-page papers. And we have a very fun conversation about all this stuff, right? But then I propose the idea, okay, if not that, then what? There's always this very long pause. Because for many students, this is the first time they've been asked something like this. And someone will almost always throw out the idea, well, it should be useful. It should be meaningful. The knowledge that I'm getting in this class should last beyond the class. So, okay, fair enough. It should maybe be some sort of activity. Why do a paper? Why do an exam? Maybe we should do something together. And then, of course, you'll always get the student that says, well, let's do interpretive dance. Let's do some scrapbooking. Fair enough. Let's put that up there. So maybe we should take a look at some local planning issues, and maybe we should do a final based off our personal interests. So, okay, fair enough. So let's have that conversation. So the very first day after midterms, we'll start to have that conversation about what do you want to do, what do you not want to do. And I should point out that the image here on the left, on the plus category board, is things that students do want to do for their final. And you'll notice that paper shows up on there. So when students are asked, how do you want to prove that you've learned, they will default back to those classic styles, because this idea of proving yourself or engaging in knowledge in a different way is challenging to them. So that does get put up on the board. So this is what the board looks like about 2 weeks after midterms, and I want to draw your attention to this idea of a design challenge. So what I do is I collect all the ideas that the students are interested in, which do vary from semester to semester, and we start building them under this umbrella called a design challenge. And so what our design challenges do is we take a look at a local New Mexico problem. We most commonly build a website or some sort of public blog, right? So it connects to that idea for a public university. We should be out there with the public, and so this information will last long beyond my course. And then you can tie in that idea of scrapbooking, right? So you're building a website, you're doing images, you're doing text, there's your scrapbooking. Look at physical plans, local planning roles. In the past, students have even been interested in engaging with President Stokes' grand challenges ideas. And then pitching, and then mock community presentations. So in the past, for local projects, what students have done is they'll take on ideas like the Gold King mine spill, and the problem will be posed, if you were a planner when this happened, how would you have addressed the situation? And so with that local context, what they'll do is they'll start building their ideas in two different ways. One, on the public forum, if they decide to do the blog or the website, what they end up doing is this allows the students to kind of collect that traditional academic approach, right? So they have a space to do that final paper. They have a space to prove themselves in that way. But what you'll notice over here is that they also get a chance to do the individual roles. So not only can they be in a group work, but they can actually contribute just like they would as a professional planner in different roles such as planning manager or fiscal planner. And then finally, rather than doing just a simple presentation to the students, what we'll do about half of the time is the students will actually do like a Shark Tank style pitch, where they, because undergraduate students really have this really driving entrepreneurial spirit right now. And so what they will want to do is rather than just simply present the paper or present to classmates, what they'll do is they'll actually pitch their solutions as if they were pitching to investors, saying, we have this really great method of addressing this problem, this is why we should be funded. Or the other thing that they do is they actually hold a mock community engagement meeting. And so what they do in this space is they take all of that classic academic lingo, but then that's not what we do professionally. We actually talk to the community. So in this space, they actually get a chance to address the community just as if they were connecting that classic academic knowledge to their professional engagement. So what I do is about 6 months after all these interventions, I get feedback from students. Melanie says that I think about this final and other similar projects for Jordan's classes to this day. I definitely still draw on these experiences. Another one says, this design your own final was a learning experience because I never did anything like this and did not know what it was going to turn out. However, our ideas were as close to as realistic as possible. So students, even 6 months after the fact, say that this was the most valuable experience that they've had. That is me. That is my website. If you need any more information, contact me. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.